Have you ever walked out of a therapy session and just wondered, is this really working? I mean, you might have a great vibe with your therapist, but how do you know for sure that connection is actually leading to real change? Well, let's get into it, because some fascinating new research suggests an AI co-pilot might be able to answer that exact question.
We talk a lot about that connection, right? That vibe. It's that feeling that you and your therapist are truly on the same page, that you're in it together. And in psychotherapy, this isn't just some nice little bonus. It's pretty much everything. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. But what if we could actually measure it? So that vibe actually has a clinical name. It's called the working alliance. And you can think of it as being built on three main pillars. First, the tasks. Are you both on the same page about the actual work you're doing in therapy? Second, the bond. Is there a real emotional connection of trust and respect? And third, the goals. Do you both agree on what you're ultimately trying to achieve? When those three things are in sync, that's when the magic happens.
And look, this isn't just a hunch. We've got decades of research backing this up. Studies literally call the working alliance a critical predictor of psychotherapy success. A strong alliance means better outcomes. It doesn't matter what kind of therapy it is. So yeah, being able to measure and strengthen it, that's a huge deal.
So how do we measure it right now? Well, the old way usually involves filling out questionnaires after a session. And that's useful for sure, but it's kind of like taking a single, slightly blurry snapshot of a really complex journey. You miss all the ups and downs. The new way that researchers are proposing, it uses AI to analyze the actual conversation, turning that one blurry photo into a high-def, moment-by-moment movie of the entire session.
And that's where this idea of an AI co-pilot comes in. Now, let's be super clear. This is not about replacing therapists. Not at all. It's about giving them a totally new kind of dashboard, a tool to help them see the invisible dynamics playing out in their sessions so they can better navigate the journey with their clients.
The framework they've built is called COMPASS. The full name is Computational Mapping of Patient-Therapist Alliance Strategies, but honestly, just think of it like a GPS for the therapy session.
So here's the big picture of how this thing actually works. The Compass system takes the raw, spoken conversation from a therapy session and feeds it through this whole analytical pipeline. And what pops out on the other side are real, measurable, data-driven insights about that working alliance, from one moment to the next.
Okay, but how on earth does a machine actually listen to a conversation and measure something as uniquely human as connection? I mean, it sounds like sci-fi, right? But it's not magic. It's this really cool process of translating our words into a language that computers can actually work with.
All right, let's break it down. First, the session gets transcribed. Easy enough. Then, each little bit of speech, each turn, is converted into this complex numerical code, which they call an embedding. The best way to think about it is like a unique fingerprint for the meaning of that sentence. From there, the AI compares that fingerprint to 36 core concepts of the working alliance and spits out a score, turn by turn, for how much it reflects alignment on tasks, bond, or goals.
And here's what that looks like in the real world.
So, take a sentence like, "I feel really understood and supported by you." The AI, not surprisingly, gives that a super high score for bond. Makes sense. Now look at the second one, about practicing relaxation techniques. That scores high on both task and goal, because it's about the work being done and the desired outcome. And that last one, about communication with a partner, that is almost pure goal. The AI can just automatically pick up on these subtle differences.
So now, for the first time, we can see the alliance not just as some single static score, but as a living, breathing thing that ebbs and flows throughout a session. And when the researchers applied this to a massive dataset, over 950 real therapy transcripts, the patterns they found were, well, they were fascinating and in some cases totally unexpected.
All right, so they've got this new super high-resolution view of therapy that nobody's ever had before. What did it actually show us? What did we learn that we just couldn't see before?
Well, for starters, a huge perception gap. The AI analysis basically confirmed that therapists and patients are often experiencing the very same session in very different ways. Therapists, it turns out, tend to think the emotional bond is stronger than it actually is, and they often underestimate how aligned they are on the long-term goals. And maybe the most surprising thing? The data shows that clients with severe conditions, like schizophrenia, often rate the alliance higher than their therapists do.
And get this, the data also revealed these unique signatures for different conditions. If you look at this top graph for anxiety sessions, you can see that from the patient's view, the emotional bond, that's the green line, it often takes a dip in the middle of a session before it recovers. For depression, the bond does something similar, but look at the task alignment, the red line, it just steadily improves. These are totally distinct emotional journeys happening in that therapy.
And then you look at other conditions, and the patterns are completely different.
For patients with schizophrenia, the connection on all three fronts tends to get better and better over the session. But for patients with suicidal tendencies, the data shows this really challenging dynamic. The emotional bond and the agreement on tasks often weaken, even while the agreement on the ultimate goal of therapy gets stronger. That is a critical insight that would be so hard to see without this kind of granular view.
Okay, this next part is maybe the most exciting piece of the whole puzzle, because the tool can see not only how the connection changes, but it can also start to tell us why. The AI was also trained to figure out what topic was being discussed at any given moment, connecting the what of the conversation to the actual strength of the alliance.
So this brings us to the most practical, million-dollar question of all, right? Does what we talk about in therapy actually change the connection? Can a therapist literally steer the conversation toward a specific topic to make the alliance stronger?
The answer, it turns out, is a huge yes, and this heat map shows us how. Just focus on the colors here. Blue means talking about a certain topic improves the patient's connection, and red means it weakens it. Pretty simple. Now let's zoom in on one major finding.
Here it is. This is one of the most powerful takeaways from all that data. When therapists guide the conversation toward the topic of personal experiences and relationships, it consistently, and I mean consistently, improves the patient's feeling of alignment on the goals of therapy. And this was true for everyone, across all conditions, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, you name it. It's a universally positive strategy.
So what does all this mean for the future of therapy? Again, the point here is not to build some kind of robot therapist. The goal is to build a smarter toolkit for human therapists, to augment their incredible intuition and expertise with objective, data-driven insights.
So let's just recap what a tool like Compass really brings to the table. It gives us that dynamic, moment-by-moment view of the alliance. It uncovers hidden patterns that are specific to different conditions. It provides therapists with a kind of roadmap so they can see if a session is on track or maybe going a bit sideways. And maybe most importantly, it offers real, actionable insights on how to build a stronger connection just by choosing what to talk about next.
Which really just leaves us with this one final kind of wild thought. Imagine a therapist getting subtle, real-time feedback from a tool like this during a session. A gentle nudge that the bond is weakening or a quiet suggestion that focusing on relationships right now could help. Could an AI copilot like this one day become a standard, essential tool in every single therapist's office?